All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 411 Ground and Pound MMA podcast, your weekly look into the wide, wacky, wonderful world of mixed martial arts. My name is Robert Winfrey, and I am your host. Um, Thanks for being here. I feel like I'm doing this a lot these days, but I'm going to apologize off the bat. For personal reasons, which I am not going to go into at this particular juncture, my head is not fully here. So kindly bear with me, and I'm going to do the best I can, but yeah, this is I'm working to keep a sense of, routine and normalcy more than anything else, so that's what we're doing. I'm going to do my best, but kindly bear with me. This has been it's been a stretch, hasn't it? Just has been a stretch. All right. What do we got tonight? Well, we're going to preview UFC on ESPN Plus 118. They are back in Australia. They've brought a card that, golly, is it not? It is just so uninteresting on paper. I found my three. I did technically find my three fights, but man, it is, oof, it is just not very good on paper. So we'll give that a preview. We'll talk news. Nothing too major has come out, but we will definitely, talk about what has come out. So thank you very much for all of that. Any way you can interact with the product is appreciated. Like, comment, subscribe, star rating, written review. Y'all know the drill. Before I move on, let me just once again thank everyone for coming back after the last episode. Whether you skipped my bit at the end or not, thanks. I having a format where I can express myself like that and knowing that I'm not just gonna, completely aggravate everybody and their dog who may be listening. So thank you. I appreciate it. All right. That's it for that. So let's jump into this, shall we? So UFC on ESPN Plus 118. I mentioned it already, but next Saturday at 5 my time. They're having a late start time. Um, well, sort of. It's weird because they're in Australia, so the timing lines up a little bit differently. Anyway, yeah, the start time is a little bit later than they normally do, but compromising a bit. Anyway, main event. So sorry, they're in Perth. Yeah, Perth, Australia, RAC Arena. And yeah, main event, light heavyweights, relevant fight. Relevant fight for the record. Gonna give them some credit for that. It is Carlos Ulberg and Dominick Reyes. You know what? Dominick Reyes may be turning things around after that really bad stretch. You know what? Good for him. He's on a three-fight winning streak, three finishes. I mean, eh. It's been a deliberate rebuild. Let me preface what I'm about to say with that. He went on a bad streak. I mean, Jan Blachowicz beat him up and knocked him out. Yuri Prochazka knocked him into next. Like, he knocked him out bad. And then did he get knocked out by Ryan Spann that quickly? That was a real, real bad thing. So he takes a couple of years off, well, 18 months, give or take. Comes back, beats Dustin Jacoby. Then he beats basically a retiring Anthony Smith. I know Smith had a little bit more after that, but basically retiring. And then took a reasonable step up from, journeyman Jacoby and all one foot out the door Anthony Smith. Fought Nikita Krylov, beat him in the first round. So he's taking another step up here because Carlos Ulberg is 12-1. His only loss is his UFC debut. He's on a good winning streak. Yeah, 8 fights. The last two have been decision, but the last two have been Volkan Oezdemir and Jan Blachowicz. This is his first main event, I believe. Certainly in the UFC. Um, yeah. So we still don't really know what he's like over 5 rounds, but his style isn't. It's not quite like energy intensive enough for me to be super concerned about him over 5. And Reyes can go 5. He's done. He did that with John Jones. I don't think he got close to 5 cents, but you know. Uh, so there's a little bit of a question there. Ulberg's style does give me some pause as it pertains to Reyes. Ulberg does a lot of moving, a lot of trying to intercept you when you're coming in from the outside, a lot of probing kicks. Those are things that Reyes has been able to deal with before. I'm not sure how Reyes' chin is still. He held up okay against Jacoby, which is not nothing. But Krylov caught him nothing super serious, but he's not fighting like a guy who's worried about his chin in terms of Reyes, so there's at least that, which is definitely a note in his favor. My inclination is to lean Ulberg, not because I think Reyes is going to fall apart. In fact, I think the rebuild for Reyes has been going quite well. I do think this is a little bit of a style that causes Reyes a little bit of problems. So I'm gonna go with Ulberg. All right, there you are. But I think there's real reason to have optimism about not only Reyes' chances here, but frankly just his overall upside, which is not something I thought I'd be saying 3 years ago. So 4 years ago at this, might be 4 years ago at this point. Anyway, so it's a relevant fight. The winner here could get the next title shot. We got to see what happens between Ankalaev and Pereira in their rematch, which frankly no one seems to care about. That might change as when we actually get to the fight, but man, there is no buzz about that thing right now. Absolutely none. Ankalaev is not interesting or marketable, and Pereira, I don't know. That loss to Ankalaev did some damage to his brand that I think we're only now starting to fully realize. And bear in mind, that's brand, that's not like damage to his ability to win. He could still win that fight. But Ankalaev had a real good read on him that first time, and I think people are just kind of expecting a bit more of the same for the rematch, so again, it's kind of a who cares thing, but the winner here could get the next shot. It's not like light heavyweight is overflowing with contenders. It really isn't. We did lose the original co-main event, which was Junior Tafa and Ibo Aslan, and when I say lose, I mean we missed. We avoided. Because boy, was nothing of value lost when that fight fell out. So now as our co-main event, we have Jack Jenkins and Ramon Taveras. I've been moderately impressed with Jenkins. 13-4 overall. He's in a bit of a rough patch here. Because he had some good win. He had a couple of good wins in his to start. Win over Don Shainis and Jamal Emmers. Then he and Chepe Mariscal were having a really good fight before the random arm injury. Really unfortunate. He beat Herbert Burns, but Herbert Burns, yeesh. Most recently lost to Gabriel Santos. I don't know if Ramon Taveras can employ as heavy a wrestling attack as Santos did. Taveras 10-3, 1-1 in the UFC. Got a split decision win over Seri Sidi. Then most recently lost to Davey Grant. Jack Jenkins doesn't fight like Davey Grant, but I don't have much of a problem picking Jenkins here. Again, I've been moderately impressed with him overall. And I think this is the kind of fight that he tends to do fairly well in. So I'm going Jenkins. But, you know, probably a decent little fight. Jack Jenkins is rarely in boring fights. Light heavyweight next, Jimmy Crute and Ivan Erslan. So Jimmy Crute, only 29, which is weird to think about, but he's been with the UFC since 2018. Coming off a win over Marcin Prachnio, he had a draw with Adolfo Bellato before that. He lost to Alonzo Menifield before that. Then had a draw with Alonzo Menifield before that. Lost to Jamal Hill, lost to Anthony Smith. That Smith fight was weird. I don't mean that in a negative way. Like, that was largely a case of one of them being in real bad shape. They were both messed up, but, you know, Smith was messed up in a way that might affect him more longer term, but he'd done enough damage to Crute with calf kicks that Crute couldn't really get back up after he had the doctor had intervened in between rounds. So it's a good little 5-minute fight. Again, both guys kind of get messed up. So before he beat Prachnio, his last win was over Modestas Bukauskas in the midst of COVID, like October of 2020. So not sure what we got with Crute at this point. Erslan. Have a quick look at him. See, I believe that is the Croatian flag. It is. 14-5. One no contest in there as well. 0-2 in the UFC. Dropped a split decision to Iwan Kutalaba. I vaguely recall that. Then lost to Navajo Sterling his last time out. His back's against the wall here. He's got to win this one, pretty much. Probably Jimmy Crute. Yeah, Crute's a decent favorite. I'll go with Crute. Oh, sorry, the other two, Ulberg and Jenkins, are favorites. Nothing crazy. Ulberg at minus 250, give or take. Okay. It's a little bit heavier than I would feel comfortable with, but understandable. And Jenkins like minus 3, minus 300. Yeah, again, Tavares hasn't shown a whole lot yet, so understandable. Okay, next. At welterweight, Jake Matthews and Neil Magny. Okay, Neil Magny, 38 years old. Good for him. Coming off that win over Elijah Zaleski dos Santos. Look, the deal with Neil Magny's pretty much been figured out at this point. The thing is, if you can fight him in such a way that you can beat him, he'll take the beating and just come back and fight again later. And if you don't exploit the known weaknesses in his game, there's a decent chance he'll beat you. Jake Matthews, 3-fight winning streak. There's been a little bit here when we occasionally have thought he might have finally turned a corner. And then, turns out, not so much. So, I don't know. The 3-fight winning streak he's on is good. It's over Phil Rowe, Francisco Prado, and Chidi Njokuani. So he's taken a name recognition step up, probably a skill step up, in all honesty, if we're talking about Magny relative to those other guys. The win over Njokuani was quick, too. I think Magny's just a little bit over the hill at this point. He's still able to get wins. I don't mean to say that he can't. And if you fight him stupidly, he absolutely will beat you. I'm going to lean towards Matthews, though. What are the odds on this? Oh, geez. Matthews like minus 500. I would not have that much faith in Jake Matthews at this point, given his history. Just throwing that one out there. Lightweight next, Tom Nolan and Charlie Campbell. Let's have a look here. Nolan, 8-1. Lost his UFC debut, but he's got rattled off 3 in a row since. Wins over Victor Martinez, Alex Reyes, and Vyacheslav Borshov. So, good. He was supposed to fight Evan Elder here. Campbell's a bit of a short notice replacement. Campbell, 9-2. 2-0 in the UFC. Let's see, he beat Alex Reyes and he beat Trevor Peek, so that's not anything to necessarily sneeze at, but on short notice, he might be in a little over his head a little bit here. Nolan is not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but he's one of those guys I think they have some decent plans for, and I think there's cause for, a fair amount of optimism there. So I'll go with Nolan. On full camp, I might actually lean Campbell. Let me just throw that out there. But on, shorter notice, I'll go with Nolan. And kicking off the main card at heavyweight, Justin Tafa and Louis Sutherland. So Justin Tafa, 2-fight losing streak to Carl Williams and Talishin Teixeira. He beat Austin Lane before that, but who doesn't beat Austin Lane? Well, few people, but, as a general rule. And Sutherland, I think this is his UFC debut, yes? He's 10-3. That is a big boy. Looking at his pictures, 6'3". It's a thick man. Yeah, this is his UFC debut. He's on a 4-fight winning streak. Where's he been fighting? Most places you wouldn't recognize. He had a couple of fights in Bellator, and he had one fight in Bellator, in which he lost. He went 1-1 in PFL at one point. Man. So he's fighting Justin or Junior? It says Justin. Hang on, I gotta check something. Because Junior... Okay, yeah, Junior dropped to light heavyweight. Okay. This is just a weird picture of Justin Tafa they've got up there. Yeah, kinda, actually. Okay, now that I see the full thing, no, that's definitely him. Okay. Where are the odds? I'm just gonna go with the odds on this one. The odds are with Tafa. In some places, it's close. You know what? I'm gonna go with Sutherland. Let me asterisk this one just because I kind of want to see them next to each other, but in the interest of not only picking favorites, and I don't think Justin Tafa's that good. On the prelims at light heavyweight, Navajo Sterling and Adolfo Bellato. This is a little bit of a setup for Navajo Sterling. Bellato is not very good. He's 12-2-1. 4-fight winning streak. Am I going to eat my words here? How's he on a 4-fight winning streak? All right. He's not on a 4-fight winning streak. He's on a 6-fight unbeaten streak. But his UFC record is 1-0-1 with a no contest. He beat Ihor Potieria, who doesn't. Shogun didn't. No, I'm sad. Had a draw with Jimmy Crute. That was a fair decision. And he's coming off that weird no contest with Paul Craig. So, I don't think Bellato's all that good. Sterling is a decent prospect for the division. He's the one they're trying to kind of set up. Not hard to read the tea leaves here. Going with Navajo Sterling. The odds agree with me? Yeah, the odds agree with me there. Okay, next up, Loma Lukbunmi and Alexia Tainara. That was pretty high on Lukbunmi at one point in time. That woman desperately wants an atomweight division. You know, the UFC should cancel women's bantamweight and add atomweight. I'm just going to throw that out there. You've probably got a big enough pool of talent worldwide to do 105, 115, 125. And because there's nothing of value structurally 135 and up. I mean, if Kayla beats... if Kayla Harrison beats... told you my mind is not here and I'm blanking on her name. Amanda Nunes. I know some of you were screaming that at me. If Kayla Harrison beats Amanda Nunes, like, what is there? Juliana Pena wants a rematch. Nobody else does. That division sucks. We could close it down. Anyway, so I was kind of high on Lukbunmi for a while, but I don't know. That's kind of just faded. She hasn't, like, blown up on the launch pad or anything. In fact, she's only got 2 losses in the UFC. One to Angela Hill, one to Lupi Godinez. She's on a 4-fight winning streak. Wins over Denise Gomes, Elise Reed, Bruna Brazil, and Estela Nunes. So, again, it's not like not like she's fizzled out. It's just a lot of the momentum, despite the wins, seem to have kind of lost, or at least been lost on me. But maybe that's just me. Tainara, on the other hand, 12-1. Let's see. 10-fight winning streak overall. Successful UFC debut over Molly McCann. I think that's the one that retired, Meatball, and she went to boxing. Tainara's looked pretty darn good. Her only loss is her 3rd professional fight. She lost to Bruna Brazil. Had a bunch of fights fall out along the way, which happens, especially at the regional level. Lukbunmi might score the upset here, but I think the size issue is going to be a thing here. Tainara's not a small strawweight, if memory serves. She's 5'4", 67 inches of reach. That's about average. Loma is, by contrast, 5'1" with 61.5 inches of reach, yeah. Again, she would really like a 105-pound weight class in the UFC. Odds are with Tainara in a pretty big way. Not a pretty big way. It's 2.5, minus 250. Yeah, the size issue there is a big thing. I'm going to respect that. That said, Loma might surprise some people. So, we'll see. Clearly. Next up, Jonathan Mikulev and Obanelli. This is my 3rd fight. That's potentially interesting on the card. I've been moderately impressed with Oban Elliott. The odds are pretty close on this one. Elliott is 12-3. 3-1 in the UFC, coming off of that loss to Seokyun Ko. It was a weird loss. He kind of just tried to out-wrestle the guy, and then it didn't work for him, and he got kind of banged out on the feet. So I understand that being kind of the cause for maybe a little bit of skepticism about how he can do here. Mikulev, 8-1. Successful UFC debut against Kevin Jousset. A little bit of a surprise there. Okay, I can see why the odds are close on this one. I still have cause to be a little bit optimistic about Elliott personally, so I'm going to go with him here, but If Ko gave a reasonable methodology for beating him, Mikolev is probably good enough to try and repeat that. But I am going to go with Oban Elliott. I think he's still pretty darn good. Middleweight next, Andre Petrosky and Cam Roston. Who cares? Petrosky could be gone from the UFC and nothing of value would be lost. Coming off a loss to Edmund Shabazian. You lose to Edmund Shabazian in 2025, you got some questions to ask yourself. He'd won his last 3 before that, but Josh Frem, Dylan Budker, and then he forced Adolfo Vieira to just kind of kickbox with him badly. Ugh. Like, the only memorable thing Petrosky did was get stopped by Jacob Malkoun's soccer kicks to the body, mind you, legal soccer kicks. Yeah, Petrosky is a waste of space. Roston, I think, is making his UFC debut here. His nickname is the Battle Giraffe. Okay, he's 6'3" at middleweight with 75 inches of reach. All right. You better have that frame if you're going to call yourself a giraffe. This is his UFC debut. He's coming off a Contender Series win. 4-fight winning streak overall. Okay, if Petrosky decides to just try to wrestle Roston, he probably wins, but he's kind of been getting away from that a little bit. All right. This is one of those that I may think very, very differently in the morning. I'm going with Roston. That might just be my antipathy for Andre Petrosky shining through in an unfair way. I freely admit that might be what's going on, and I've just got a blind spot there right now. Bantamweight next, Colby Thickness and Josias Muasa. All right. So Thickness, 7-1. Lost his UFC debut to Alexander Topuria. Beat him via unanimous decision. Nothing, embarrassing about that loss necessarily. On the other side, oh, excuse me, I mispronounced this gentleman's name. Musasa. There we go. Ugh. Told you, my head's not here, and it's not even that late. I don't have that excuse going for me right now. So Musasa is 8-1. Lost his UFC debut to Carlos Ulberg. He also missed weight for that. That's not a good thing. I remember that. They kind of they were hyping Musasa up. And then, yeah, that was half funny. That was, in fact, kind of funny. So 2 guys looking for their first UFC win. Odds are once again with Musasa. I think they were against Vera, too. All right, I'll respect the odds on this one more time. But I don't know, man. You can only get by on passing the eye test so much, Okay, next up, we got Jamie Malarkey and Rolando Bedoya. Malarkey been out of action for a bit. Last fought in May of last year when he got stopped by Mauricio Hufi. He's only 1-3 in his last 4. Now, granted, lost to Muhammad Naimov, no shame. Beat John McDessie, decent win. Lost to Nasrat Hakparast, got stopped by him in the first round. That loss to Hufi is not aging super well, but Hufi also is coming off of the step up in class and then lose performance. So, have to wait and see a little bit still on that one. Bedoya's been real up and down. Has he only been down 14-4? This is the guy who just he's got a rock skull and just has those weird fights. Yeah, he's 0-3 in the UFC. Losses to Chaos Williams, Song Kanan, and Jai Herbert. Don't know that I'm going to bet on Malarkey getting his first win here. Excuse me, on Bedoya getting his first UFC win here. He's moderately entertaining, but I don't know, man. I just don't know if he should be in the UFC right now. Odds are close, a little bit back and forth. The layoff for Malarkey is a real concern. Let's be clear about that. All right, I'm going to go with Malarkey for the moment. I'm going to asterisk this one. There's a couple of things I want to check. And frankly, by the time the odds finalize for this fight, I'll probably shift to whoever's the favorite on fight night. Women's bantamweight next, so, nothing of value. Michelle Montague and Luana Carolina. Montague 6-0, making her UFC debut. A lot of grappling finishes. Yeah, a lot of rear naked chokes. Okay. Carolina 11-4. 6-3 in the UFC. Currently on a 3-fight winning streak. Wins over Ivana Petrovic, Yulia Stoliarenko. She missed weight for that, though. And Lucia Pudilova. That was July of last year, though. She had a fight with Montana De La Rosa fall out. Probably still going to lean Carolina. She's not bad. She's not bad. Oh, the odds are really with Montague, really. All right. Oh, I don't know enough. All right. Here's the deal. I'm going to asterisk this one as well. I'm going to say Carolina for the moment. I need to check a few things on that, so bear with me on that one. And then kicking off things at heavyweight, because we deserve nothing but terrible things in punishment. Brando, oh, wow, I'm going to destroy this gentleman's name. He's from Australia, but with apparently Balkan roots. So, Croatia, Slovakia, places like that. Okay, actually, knowing that's Balkan. So, Parasikic or Parachikic. One of those has the CH, one of them has the harder C. I can't remember which accent point over the C denotes which one. So I apologize. I'm going to have gotten part of that wrong. He's 4-1. He's a 6'5" city kickboxing guy, 4-1, coming into his UFC debut. He's fighting Elisha Ellison, who is 5-1. His nickname is Snack Panther. Okay. Let's see, Ellison on a 3-fight winning streak. These two were supposed to fight back in August on the Contender Series, and I guess they just bumped it up to a UFC debut for both of them, so here we are. Probably just going to go with the odds on this one. Odds are with Parachek. I'm just going to go with Parachek at the moment, and apologize if I'm getting that wrong. I will respect the odds. Pericic. Yeah. And that is our overlong UFC return to Australia. Saturday, I'll have coverage, so stop by, say hello. That, again, man, that starts at like prelim start time. going to double check that. Because... Alright, let me just look over here. This one, yeah, that... The prelims are set to start at... So what, 7 Eastern? 5 my time is, yeah, 7 Eastern. That's going to go late. That's going to go kind of late. That's not a good thing. Yeah, I will deal with it. So Saturday, stop by, say hello. I always appreciate it when you guys do that, so thank you very much in advance for that. That's done. That's done. There you are. Okay, let's burn through some news here, shall we? So Gervonta Davis and Jake Paul, whatever that is going to wind up being, moved. They were supposed to be in Atlanta. They were apparently the Georgia Commission was having some issues with them. Going a little something like, the commission going, you're kind of promoting this as a real fight. We're only really going to sanction this as an exhibition. So what's up with that? And that whole promotion is kind of skirting that line. They're not sure if they want to try and make this an actual official fight that'll go on your record, or just be an exhibition. So when Georgia was like, kind of, what's up with that? They went, all right, we won't go to Georgia. So they're going to Miami instead because there's a few commissions that are just going to kind of comfortable sanctioning you fighting a kangaroo. Florida, Texas, under the right circumstances, Nevada, things like that. So that's been moved. Just location, date, distributor, and everything are all set to be the same. So if you care about that, there's your minor update on those shenanigans. Okay, on the UFC side of things, Rafael Fiziev is out of the main event of UFC Rio. As of this recording, we do not have information on who will replace him against Charles Oliveira. Benoit Saint-Denis had kind of made some noise about being willing to step up, and then decided no. Fighting Charles Oliveira on short notice if you're Benoit Saint-Denis is not a good idea. Fighting Charles Oliveira if you're Benoit Saint-Denis at all is probably not a very good idea. That's a very bad style matchup for you. You walk headfirst into traffic, Charles Oliveira is happy to deliver that to you, and Charles Oliveira is a much better grappler than you are, so, So, still waiting on that. We'll have to see who, if anyone, steps up. Also, on the loss of fights news, I don't think I talked about this last time because I don't think the news is broken. Anthony Hernandez is out of his fight against Reiner de Ritter. That's very unfortunate. Brendan Allen now steps in to fight RDR. That all but guarantees Nasruddin Imavov the next title shot. If de Ritter pulls off something genuinely spectacular, he might be able to get back, might be able to hop over again. But it would need to be, I said before, like, if Anthony Hernandez could have just kind of done a normal, high pace, high activity, fluffy Hernandez win over RDR, it might have been enough. Now he's out, so that's unfortunate. Imavov is probably getting the next title shot, and in fairness, meritocratically, he does have the best case. So we'll have to see. I favor de Ritter over Allen. No offense to Brendan Allen, but that's a tough style for him no matter what. So we'll see the fight when it happens, but there we are. And lastly, on some negative news, because that's all we've got these days. BJ Penn was arrested again in Hawaii for violating a court order. I believe this was the restraining order that his family had against him. I believe that's the 5th time he's been arrested this year, give or take. That man needs help. And I can't express enough my deep-seated anger and frustration that so many things, so many situations, institutions, and the systems are failing so drastically. The fact that we have lost proper I'm going to call them something. I need you to understand, I know the word is loaded, but the fact that we have lost the asylums in this country is a real negative. Now, that's a statement that comes with baggage. Because everybody goes, well, Reagan closed the asylums in the 80s, and boy, that was a mistake. And you know what? In some ways, yes. In some ways, yes, it was a mistake. You know why Reagan closed the asylums? You can look this up. Because they were not working. The actual explosion in, homelessness and turning a lot of growing mental health issues into big public policy issues, that came because of JFK. That started the ball rolling when he tried to get the federal government involved in the um, mental health hospital business. That was a pet project of his. If I'm charitable towards him, and I should be charitable as possible to everyone. It's because he had some of that in his family. His sister, I think, was in and out of institutions. And he knew it was important, and he thought, like a lot of potentially well-meaning people, boy, I sure could use the powers of the state to make an impact on this thing that I care about. And more often than not, it goes very, very badly. And that did. It kind of messed with a lot of the way those were run, messed with a lot of how some of them were privatized, made it very, very difficult to actually run a privatized one. Ugh. And that messed with a lot of things related to that. And bear in mind, there's some horror stories if you look at, mental health facilities from far enough back in time, 40s, 50s, and whatnot. I'm not saying they don't need proper oversight. I'm saying the way it went about was not very good, and it led to not very good things to the point where Reagan closed them because closing them didn't actually cause all that much of a difference from the way things were running at that point. Tree falls in a forest and no one hears. Does anyone care? Kind of a thing. But BJ Penn needs help. And it's the kind of help that requires, a facility. Ugh. It's going to have a real bad ending. It's going to have a real, real bad ending. And I hope it doesn't. I don't want it. But man, it is not difficult at this point to see where this is going. It's really not hard. So, yeah. All right. I'm going to look for anything new on the old social medias. If there's nothing there, we'll do plugs and get out of here. And wow, I'm going to do this in under an hour in all probability. Good for me, I suppose. Okay. Nope, I don't see anything new there worth talking about, so plugs. This is all going to be subject to change, subject to what happens in my life over the next little bit, but the current plan is Monday to do a review on Damn You Hollywood of Him, the Jordan Peele produced sort of sports horror movie, I guess. So that'll be me, Mark, and Jason is the current plan again. See what happens. SmackDown on Friday, per usual. Do I have anything else? That's not for you. Yeah, sorry, Thursday. Oh, jeez. Thursday will be a triple feature for Drop, Echo Valley, and Sinners. All right. We'll see if I make that one. That remains to be seen. Again, then SmackDown on Friday, UFC event on Saturday back here. This week I covered WWE's WrestlePalooza, their first ESPN event. Was not very much impressed, if we're being honest. So you can find my coverage of that and everything else over in the wrestling or MMA zones of 411mania.com. My other podcasts are done on the W2M network, so find me over there if you're so inclined. And yeah, next week we will review UFC on ESPN Plus 118, and we will preview Right. Yeah, we'll be previewing UFC 320. Hey, remember when I said there was no hype for the main event? Yeah, it's coming to pass. They're in Nevada. Main event for the rematch for the light heavyweight belt, Ankalaev and Pereira. Co-main event for the bantamweight belt, Merab Dvalishvili and Corey Sandhagen. What else is there? Yuri Prochazka and Khalil Roundtree. That'll probably be okay. Josh Emmett and Yusuf Zalal is a little meh. Um, uh, Joe Pyfer and Abus Magomedov on a pay-per-view. What are we doing? What else is here? Ateba Gautier and Osman D. They're just giving Gautier guys a kill. Edmund Shabazian and Andre Muniz. All right. Chris Gutierrez and Fardad Basharat. Maybe. Macy Chasson and Yana Santos. Who cares? Patchy Mix and Jakob Viklatz. I don't care about Patchy Mix at this point. He can get some hype back, but he's got some work to do. Veronica Hardy and Brogan Walker's whatever. Ramiz Brahimaj and Austin Vanderford is whatever. Jusong Yu and Daniel Santos. Daniel Santos is moderately interesting. And Punahele Soriano versus Nikolai Veretennikov. You know, they've got a good top 3 fights. You know what? I'll give them that. Good top 3 fights. Full preview next week. All right, that's it for me for this week. Thank you all very much. Stay safe out there, as always, and continue to be well, be safe, and behave.